On the occasion of my 65th birthday, I was presented with an unexpected gesture from my family. Upon my arrival at the restaurant, my daughter in law declared, "This is your final repast before transitioning to an assisted living environment." I responded with a serene smile, "And this marks your last meal in your very own abode." The following day, your presence brought me considerable joy. My name is Eleanor, and I have reached the age of 65. I never envisioned my birthday would evolve into the most mortifying moment of my existence, yet simultaneously become the very day that would irrevocably alter everything. It was a Friday evening when I entered the Bella Vista Grill, that sophisticated establishment downtown where we had commemorated so many significant milestones. My son, Jason, who is 40 years of age, had contacted me that morning with his characteristic sweet tone, the one he employed when he desired something. "Mum, we want to fete your birthday in grand fashion. You merit something extraordinary." I ought to have sensed something amiss. Jason had not displayed particular attentiveness toward me in recent years, not since Kiara entered his life. However, a portion of me, that part that perpetually anticipates the best from those one cherishes, wished to believe that perhaps circumstances were improving. I donned my favoured navy blue gown, the one my late husband Robert always remarked enhanced my elegance. I meticulously applied my makeup, styled my silver tresses, and affixed the pearl earrings Robert had bestowed upon me for our 20th anniversary. I desired to present myself favourably to my family. Upon entering the restaurant, I observed Jason and Kiara already seated at a table by the window. He appeared agitated, fussing with his napkin, avoiding my gaze. Kiara, conversely, was resplendent. She was adorned in a striking crimson dress and sported that smile which, over the years, I had come to distrust. Happy birthday, Eleanor," Kiara exclaimed, her voice overly loud, excessively saccharine. She leaned forward and embraced me with an affection that felt as contrived as her smile. Jason rose and bestowed a kiss upon my cheek. "Happy birthday, Mum." We sat and commenced our dinner. For a fleeting moment all seemed ordinary. We conversed about the weather, Jason's professional endeavours, Kiara's aspirations for redecorating their residence, their home, the very dwelling I had been sustaining for years unbeknownst to them. It was after the main course that Kiara elected to initiate her offensive. "Eleanor," she began, dabbing her lips with her napkin, "Jason and I have been discussing this, and we believe it is time for an important conversation with you." A tremor of apprehension ran through me at her tone, the manner in which she articulated Jason and I, as though they constituted a united front against me, the glint in her eyes brimming with barely suppressed malevolence. "What is it you wish to discuss?" I inquired, though a segment of my consciousness already divined the answer. Kara exchanged a glance with Jason, who nodded nervously. It was evident this had been meticulously planned. "Well," Kiara continued, "we simply do not believe it is safe for you to reside alone any longer. You have been experiencing some lapses in memory recently." Lapses in memory? My intellect was as sharp as ever. I managed my finances, prepared meals, maintained my household, and consumed 3 books weekly. But I remained silent, eager to observe the extent of this pretense. "We have discovered the ideal location for you," Kara proceeded, her voice now adopting a condescending inflection that compelled me to clench my fists beneath the table. "Sunset Gardens is a charming senior living community. You will have constant companionship, medical attention, activities, and assisted living facility," I stated in a hushed tone. "An assisted living community," Jason interjected swiftly, finally finding his voice. "Mum, we merely desire what is best for you." I gazed at my son, this man I had raised with such profound affection, following the demise of his father a decade prior. this child who once sought solace in my embrace during his nightmares, who implored me to read him bedtime stories, who vowed that upon reaching adulthood, he would marry me, proclaiming me the most beautiful woman in the world. We have already made the arrangements, Kiara announced triumphantly. You can relocate on Monday. We will manage the packing of your belongings. It was at that precise juncture that something within me fractured, not from sorrow, but from absolute clarity. I perceived everything with an unblemished precision. The years of subtle manipulation, the manner in which Kiara had progressively estranged Jason from me, the occasions they had omitted to invite me to family gatherings, the conversations that ceased abruptly upon my entrance into a room. So this is my final dinner as a free woman, I remarked, maintaining a placid tone. Kiara beamed, convinced of her victory. Do not view it in that light, Eleanor. Consider it the commencement of a new chapter. I took a sip of my wine, relishing its flavour. Then I placed the glass upon the table and met Kiara's gaze directly. You are correct, my dear. This is my final dinner with you. I paused, observing her smile begin to falter. And this is your last dinner in a house of your own to inhabit. The ensuing silence was absolute. Jason blinked, bewildered. Kiara's complexion turned ashen. What do you mean? Kiara inquired, her voice now lacking its earlier conviction. I smiled, the first genuine expression of mirth throughout the entire evening. You shall discover tomorrow. I rose, retrieved my handbag, and left sufficient currency upon the table to settle the bill. As I departed, I could discern Kiara vehemently chiding Jason, but their voices receded as I exited the restaurant. That night, ensconced in my drawing room, surrounded by photographs and mementos of a life well lived, I retrieved my telephone and dialed a number I had committed to memory. Mr. Martinez, I stated upon the lawyer's answer, this is Eleanor Sterling. I require your presence early tomorrow morning. It is time my family apprehended the truth regarding my assets. I terminated the call and poured myself a measure of wine. Tomorrow, Kiara and Jason would discover that the bewildered elderly woman they intended to confine to an assisted living facility was, in fact, the proprietor of the dwelling they occupied, and considerably more than they had ever conjectured. Saturday morning dawned with a crisp, cold clarity. I awoke early, as is my custom, and prepared coffee. While awaiting Mr. Martinez's arrival, I meticulously reviewed all the documentation I would require for the impending events. For years, I had maintained the full extent of my holdings in secrecy. Robert and I had exercised greater astuteness than our family perceived. While they viewed me as a widowed retiree subsisting on her pension, I had been judiciously investing in real estate throughout the city. The domicile where Jason and Kiara resided was merely the initial revelation. Mr. Martinez arrived precisely at 9 o'clock, as was his invariable punctuality. Edward Martinez had served as our family legal counsel for 2 decades, a discreet individual who comprehended the significance of discretion. Good morning, Eleanor, he greeted me, placing his briefcase upon my dining room table. I surmise the moment has finally arrived to take action. Indeed, I replied, pouring him a cup of coffee. I can no longer maintain the pretense. We had discussed this potentiality on numerous occasions in recent years. Edward had borne witness to Kiara's gradual estrangement of Jason from me and had devised several legal strategies to safeguard my interests. Are you certain you wish to proceed? He inquired, though we both understood there was no recourse. Following last night's events, I have no alternative. I recounted the dinner, the proposed facility, and the dispassionate manner in which they had planned my removal. Edward listened in silence, nodding occasionally. Very well, he finally pronounced. We shall commence with the eviction proceedings. Given that you are the rightful owner of the property on Maple Street, you possess all legal entitlements. The property on Maple Street? Jason and Kiara had resided there for 5 years, under the impression it was theirs. What they remained unaware of was that when they encountered financial difficulties 3 years prior, I had quietly settled their mortgage to prevent them from losing their home. The bank had subsequently transferred the title to my name, a fact I had deliberately withheld. "How much time do they have to vacate?" I inquired. 30 days is the statutory period, but we can expedite this to 1 week by arguing a breach of the lease agreement. "What lease agreement?" Edward inquired with a smile. "The one we shall execute presently, backdated 3 years, a contract stipulating that the lease may be terminated forthwith in instances of disrespect or threats directed at the owner." As I affixed my signature to the documents, I found myself contemplating the trajectory that had led to this juncture. I recalled when Jason first introduced Kiara to me 8 years ago. She was charming then, or at least she made a considerable effort to appear so. "Your mother is remarkable," she had remarked to me during that inaugural dinner. "I hope we can become very close." And initially, her sincerity seemed genuine. She assisted me in the kitchen, inquired about Robert, and appeared truly interested in learning our family's history. But gradually, the dynamics began to shift. First, there were the subtle insinuations that perhaps Jason visited me too frequently. "He needs to sever the umbilical cord a bit, don't you think?" she had once commented, laughing as if it were a jest, but it was no laughing matter. Then came the criticisms veiled as concern. "Eleanor, are you certain you should be driving at your age?" Or, "I worry about you living alone. What if you were to fall and no one discovered you?" Jason, my dear Jason, had begun echoing these anxieties as if they were his own. "Ready," Edward announced, returning the documents to his briefcase. "The eviction notices will be served on Monday morning. I have also prepared correspondence for the bank, effectively cancelling all automatic transfers you have been making to cover their expenditures." This was another detail unknown to Kiara and Jason. For the preceding few years, I had discreetly defrayed numerous of their expenses. Kiara's automobile, the vacation they had embarked upon last year, even some of the opulent furnishings Kiara had acquired for their residence. And the utility disconnections also on Monday: electricity, water, gas, internet. Everything is under their names, so legally you have the authority to terminate these services. A twinge of sorrow pierced me for Jason. Despite everything, he remained my son. Yet a more potent emotion also arose: determination. They had transgressed a boundary last night, and there was no turning back. Following Edward's departure, I sat in my kitchen with a second cup of coffee and my mobile device. I recognized the imperative to act with haste before Kiara had an opportunity to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I dialed Jason's number. He responded on the 3rd ring. "Mum, are you well? You departed so abruptly last night." His voice conveyed genuine concern, and for a moment my resolve wavered. This was my child, the infant I had cradled in my arms, the youngster I had soothed through his nightmares. "Jason, I need you to come over, just you. There is something significant we must discuss. It cannot be postponed." "Kiara and I were just about to go view houses for you near the facility. Near Sunset Gardens." And there it was. Even at this juncture, after publicly humiliating me, they were proceeding with their plans as though my opinion held no weight. "No, Jason, it cannot wait. Come now, or on Monday you will discover certain truths in a far less agreeable fashion." A protracted silence ensued. "Mum, you are frightening me." "You ought to be frightened. Come alone, Jason. If you bring Kiara, I shall not admit you." I terminated the call before he could respond. As I awaited his arrival, I meandered through my residence, this house that Robert and I had purchased when Jason was merely 5 years old. Every nook held memories. the indelible mark upon the wall where Jason had measured his height on each successive birthday, the stain upon the carpet from the grape juice he had spilled at the age of 7, the photograph from his university commencement, where he beamed with pride, diploma in hand. Where had it all deviated so drastically? At what point had my son concluded that I was a burden rather than his mother? The doorbell chimed precisely 45 minutes later. I opened the door and beheld Jason standing there, a picture of nervousness and bewilderment. "Hi, Mum, come in," I said, stepping aside. He settled onto the sofa where he had watched 1,000 Disney films with me during his childhood. I occupied a chair opposite him, Robert's chair. "Jason," I began, "there are many things you do not comprehend about me, about your father, about our financial circumstances. Mum, if this pertains to finances for the facility, I already informed you that Kiara and I shall manage it." "Your house?" I interrupted him. "The house in which you reside with Kiara. Do you ascertain who the actual proprietor is?" Jason's brow furrowed. "It is ours. We hold the mortgage." "No, Jason, you do not." I retrieved the documents Edward had entrusted to me and presented them to him. I observed as his eyes scanned the pages, his expression morphing from confusion to utter shock. This cannot be true. When you were on the precipice of losing the house 3 years ago, I discharged the entire debt. The bank transferred the deed to me. You have been residing on my property for 3 years. Jason's face drained of color. "Why did you not inform us?" "Because I believed it was my son residing there. I presumed you would, one day, grasp what I had undertaken on your behalf." My voice faltered slightly, but last night I realized I no longer possess a son. I have an unfamiliar individual intent on confining me to divest himself of me. "Mum, it is not that. It is not that way." I stood, moving towards the window. "Jason, when was the last occasion you visited me when you did not require funds or some other concession? When was the last time you telephoned simply to ascertain my well-being?" The silence served as my reply. "On Monday," I stated without turning to face him, "you will receive an official notice of eviction. You have 1 week to secure alternative accommodation." "Mum, you cannot do this. We are family." I finally turned to confront him. "Last night, in that restaurant, you made it unequivocally clear to me that I am no longer considered family. Now, you shall confront the ramifications of that decision." Sunday morning, as I was partaking of my coffee and perusing the newspaper, in my customary fashion, my telephone began to ring incessantly. I did not recognize the initial number, but I answered regardless. "Eleanor, it is Carmen, Kiara's sister." Her voice was harsh and accusatory. "I cannot comprehend what you are doing to my sister and your own son." Thus, Kiara's campaign had already commenced. I had anticipated it. "Good morning, Carmen. I was unaware you possessed my number." "Kiara provided it to me. She is distraught." "Eleanor, how can you exhibit such cruelty towards your own kin?" I reclined in my chair, preparing myself for what I knew would be an extended discourse. "Did Kiara inform you of the dinner on Friday?" "She told me you were endeavoring to assist her in finding a secure place to reside and that you reacted in a frenzied manner." "A frenzied manner?" Naturally, that would be Kiara's chosen narrative. "Did she mention that they announced they were placing me in a facility without even soliciting my consent?" "Eleanor, at your age, it is customary to require assistance." "Carmen," I interrupted her, "I am 65, not 95. I manage my own finances, I prepare meals, I maintain my home, I read, I drive. There is absolutely nothing amiss with my cognitive faculties." "But Kiara informed me you have been forgetting things, that you occasionally fail to recognize individuals. Fabrications, it was all falsehoods." Yet I recognized that Kiara had been meticulously constructing this narrative for months, perhaps laying the groundwork for this very moment. Carmen, did you ever engage in direct conversation with me regarding these so-called memory impediments? A pause ensued. Well, no, but if I were experiencing them, would it not be prudent for someone to have conferred with me beforehand, prior to dictating my future? Following Carmen, Kiara's mother placed a call, then a cousin of Jason's whom I had scarcely encountered in years, then Kiara's closest confidant. All conveyed the same message. Eleanor had become senile and malevolent, cruelly punishing her devoted family for their benevolent attempts to care for her. By noon, I had received 12 such solicitations. Kiara had been remarkably industrious. It was then that the doorbell chimed. Through the window, I observed a vehicle unfamiliar to me. Upon opening the door, I encountered an elegantly attired older woman with a severe countenance. Are you Eleanor Sterling? Yes, I am. I am Dr. Patricia Vega, a geriatric specialist. Your daughter-in-law contacted me, expressing profound concern regarding your mental well-being. She requested that I come and assess you. I felt as though I had been physically struck. Kiara had escalated to the point of introducing a physician to my home without my authorization. I did not request any evaluation, I stated firmly. Mrs. Sterling, I comprehend that it can be disorienting, but at times individuals experiencing cognitive decline are unaware of their need for assistance. Dr. Vega, is it? I maintained a calm yet resolute tone. I appreciate your willingness to come, but I shall not permit you to enter my residence without a legal mandate. If my daughter-in-law is so concerned about my mental well-being, she may pursue the appropriate legal avenues. The physician appeared taken aback by my lucid and direct response. Madam, your family is genuinely concerned. My family, I retorted, informed me on Friday evening that they intended to place me in an assisted living facility without consulting me. That does not resemble genuine concern. It resembles manipulation. After the physician departed, I sat in my kitchen trembling, not from apprehension but from sheer indignation. Kiara was not about to cease her machinations. She was prepared to have me declared mentally incapacitated to achieve her objectives. I immediately contacted Edward. Eleanor, what is amiss? I recounted the telephone calls, the physician's visit, the entire character assassination campaign orchestrated by Kiara. This is more serious than I initially apprehended, Edward stated. If she succeeds in gathering sufficient testimonies indicating your mental incompetence, she could legally challenge your decisions regarding your assets. Can she accomplish that? It is challenging, but not impossible, particularly if she secures Jason's cooperation. My heart plummeted. Jason, my own son, could potentially testify against me if Kiara managed to persuade him. What recourse do I have? We must act with greater alacrity than initially planned, and we require medical documentation substantiating your mental competency. That afternoon, Edward arranged an emergency appointment with Dr. Ramirez, my physician of 15 years, as well as a neuropsychologist, for a comprehensive cognitive assessment. In the interim, the telephone calls persisted, some from distant relatives, neighbours Kiara had contacted, even a few of my former colleagues from the educational institution where I had taught prior to my retirement. The most distressing was from my sister Teresa, who resides in another state. Eleanor, her voice conveyed worry. Jason called me. He informed me you have been behaving unusually, that you expelled them from their residence without justification. Their residence, I repeated, my voice tinged with bitterness. Yes, their residence. Eleanor, is such a drastic course of action truly necessary? They are your family. Teresa, do you truly believe I have suddenly lost my faculties? Well, no, but aging can be... I am 65, Teresa, the same age as you. This statement rendered her momentarily silent. Listen, I continued, I shall transmit some documents to you via email. I wish for you to comprehend the actual circumstances before you pass judgment upon me. That evening, I meticulously prepared a comprehensive dossier of information. Copies of the property deeds, bank statements, a record of the payments I had made on behalf of Jason and Kiara, even clandestine audio recordings I had captured during some of our recent conversations where Kiara had exhibited particular cruelty. I dispatched it not only to Teresa, but also to several key relatives. I desired them to witness the evidence before Kiara could completely poison their perceptions. Monday morning arrived with a sense of urgency exceeding my expectations. At 7 o'clock in the morning, my telephone rang. It was Jason, and his voice was laced with panic. "Mum, there is a gentleman at our door with legal papers. He states we must vacate the house." "Yes," I replied simply. "How could you perpetrate this? How could you summon the authorities as if we were criminals?" "Jason, I did not contact the police. I dispatched a sheriff to serve a lawful eviction notice. There is a significant distinction." "But we are your family." "Last night, your spouse brought a physician to my residence without my consent, intending to have me declared mentally incompetent. Was that also a consequence of our familial bond?" Silence. "Jason," I continued, "Kiara has been contacting everyone we know to inform them that I have lost my mind. She is constructing a case to seize control of my autonomy. Were you privy to this information?" Further silence. "Mom," he finally articulated, his voice diminished, "Kiara asserts she merely wishes to safeguard you." "From whom, Jason, is she safeguarding me?" "From myself. She contends that you could potentially harm yourself residing alone, that you might become a victim of unscrupulous individuals." "Jason, listen to the words you are uttering. You are merely echoing your wife's pronouncements verbatim. When was the last time you formed an independent thought concerning your mother?" The line fell silent for such an extended duration I surmised he had ended the call. "I do not know," he eventually whispered. "That is the most truthful response you have offered in years." After disconnecting the call, I sat in my kitchen, gazing out at the garden that Robert and I had cultivated together. I felt a profound sense of solitude, more so than at any point since his passing. For years I'd carried a weight, a pretense that suffocated me, but then a profound sense of liberation washed over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in ages. I was finally free from the charade of everything being perfectly fine, free from the pretense of caring about Kiara, and blessedly free from the exhausting task of navigating Jason's sensitive emotions. Just then, the telephone broke the silence. It was Edward. "Eleanor," he began, his voice urgent, "I have some news. Jason just contacted my office. He wishes to meet with me this afternoon." "For what purpose?" I inquired, a knot forming in my stomach. He hadn't specified, but I could readily surmise that Kiara was likely orchestrating this, pressuring him to contest the eviction legally. I straightened in my chair, a newfound resolve hardening my expression. "Can he actually do that?" I asked. "He can certainly attempt it," Edward replied, "but I have a few surprises prepared for him should he choose that path." "What kind of surprises are we talking about?" I pressed. "I'd prefer not to go into specifics over the phone," he responded, "but suffice it to say, my investigation into the family's financial affairs has unearthed some rather illuminating details concerning Kiara's spending habits over the past several years." After we concluded our call, the stark reality hit me. The true battle had only just commenced. Kiara was not one to surrender easily, and it was evident she intended to wield Jason as her instrument of retribution. However, I too possessed my own arsenal, and unlike Kiara's deceitful tactics, my weapons were fortified with the unvarnished truth. That very afternoon, as I anxiously awaited updates from Edward's meeting with Jason, My phone rang again, delivering an unexpected summons. "Mrs. Sterling," a firm voice announced, "this is Detective Morales from the local precinct. We've received a report suggesting you may be in imminent danger." A chill coursed through me. "What sort of danger are you referring to?" I managed to ask. "Your daughter-in-law contacted us this morning, expressing considerable concern," the detective explained. "She indicated that you've been exhibiting erratic behavior and voiced fears that you might pose a threat to yourself or others." My blood boiled with a cold fury. Kiara had played her most ignoble card. She was attempting to have me incarcerated. Detective Morales arrived at my residence an hour later. He was a man of middle age, his eyes conveying a disarming kindness, yet possessing a keen alertness. I invited him inside, offering him coffee, while he subtly assessed my demeanor and the surroundings. "Mrs. Sterling," he commenced, his tone measured, "I must confess, having spoken with you on the phone and now observing you in person, I see no indication of any erratic or perilous conduct." "Precisely because there is none," I responded with unwavering composure. "Detective, I am currently entangled in a profoundly acrimonious family dispute, and my daughter-in-law is leveraging every available means to portray me as a senile old woman." I presented him with a comprehensive array of documentation: property deeds, recent medical records, and even audio recordings that unequivocally captured Kiara's disdainful pronouncements about me. "This certainly paints a far more nuanced picture," the detective conceded after a thorough review of the evidence. "Have you considered seeking a restraining order against your daughter-in-law?" "Is that something I can pursue?" I asked, hope flickering. "If you can demonstrate harassment or threats, then yes," he confirmed, "and from what I've reviewed here, you appear to have a robust case." Following the detective's departure, I felt a profound sense of exhaustion mingled with immense relief. At the very least, the authorities now understood I was not mentally compromised, but I harbored no illusions that Kiara would abandon her campaign. I wouldn't have to wait long to ascertain her next maneuver. That evening, while meticulously organizing documents in my study, I stumbled upon a discovery that sent a tremor of dread through me. Within an aged box containing vital papers, I realized that certain items were conspicuously absent. My mother's treasured jewels, kept in a small pouch nestled within the box, had vanished. The elegant pearl necklace, a heartfelt gift from Robert on our 10th anniversary, was also gone. My heart hammered against my ribs as I frantically searched the rest of the box. My grandmother's exquisite diamond brooch, the striking emerald earrings inherited from my aunt, even my gold graduation watch, all had disappeared. Without a second thought, I reached for the telephone, despite the late hour of 10 o'clock at night. "Eleanor, is everything all right?" Edward inquired, concern evident in his voice. "Edward, my jewelry has been stolen. The most precious pieces have vanished from my safe." "Who else has access to your residence?" he asked. "Only Jason," I replied. "He possesses emergency keys since Robert's passing." A heavy, palpable silence settled over the line. "Eleanor," Edward said, his voice grave, "I need to ask you something, and I require your absolute candor. When was the last occasion you verified the whereabouts of those jewels?" I paused, recalling the moment. "Approximately 6 months ago, when I retrieved them for the anniversary of Robert's death." "And since that time, how many instances has Jason visited your home when you were not present?" My stomach plummeted. Jason had frequently visited when I was out shopping or attending medical appointments. He'd claimed he wanted to ensure everything was in order, that there were no issues with the plumbing or electrical systems. I'd found his concern rather touching. "Edward, are you suggesting Jason pilfered my jewelry?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I'm suggesting that tomorrow morning we visit every pawn shop in the city, armed with photographs of those pieces." Sleep eluded me that entire night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, grappling with the devastating possibility that my own son had absconded with my mother's heirlooms, Robert's cherished gifts, the very treasures I had envisioned bequeathing to him. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Edward arrived, accompanied by a private investigator named Mr. Mendoza. We had meticulously prepared photographic evidence of all the missing items and compiled a list of the city's most reputable porn establishments. Our search proved remarkably brief. At the third establishment we patronized, the proprietor immediately recognized the photographs. Yes, these items, he confirmed. A young man brought them in about 2 months ago. He stated they belonged to his grandmother, who had recently passed away, and that the family required immediate funds. Can you describe this individual? Mr. Mendoza inquired. Brown hair, approximately 40 years of age, well dressed and quite agitated, the owner replied. He was accompanied by a woman, blonde hair, impeccably presented. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Jason and Kiara had perpetrated the theft of my family's jewels. What was the total sum you paid them for these items? I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The proprietor consulted his records. $2,000. The jewels were easily valued at $40,000, but they accepted a fraction of their true worth because they were in urgent need of cash. And what reason did they provide for their urgent financial need? Edward inquired. The proprietor recalled something about a trip they needed to fund. The woman, he remembered, had mentioned a spa resort. A spa resort. A wave of recollection washed over me. 2 months prior, Kiara had proudly showcased photographs on social media of a lavish vacation they had undertaken. She had boasted about the 5-star accommodations, the indulgent spa treatments, the extravagant dining, all funded by the sale of my precious family jewels. We secured copies of all relevant documentation and transaction records. Mr. Mendoza also obtained the security camera footage, which unequivocally depicted Jason and Kiara divesting me of my possessions. Back at my home, I sat in the kitchen, tears finally flowing freely for the first time since this ordeal began. It wasn't the jewels themselves that brought me to tears, though their loss was immeasurable. It was my son, the man he had become, the agonizing realization that the tender boy I had raised was no longer present. Edward allowed me a few moments of catharsis before speaking softly. Eleanor, there's more, he stated. I looked up, dabbing my eyes. More of what? Mr. Mendoza conducted a further investigation into Jason and Kiara's financial situation. He uncovered some deeply concerning details. He handed me a folder brimming with documents, bank statements, credit card records, credit reports. They have accumulated debts exceeding $80,000, Edward continued, primarily from credit cards and a personal loan Jason took out 6 months ago. $80,000. What could they possibly have spent so much on? Designer apparel, jewelry for Kiara, the automobile she drives, extensive home renovations, vacations. They have been living far beyond their financial capacity. I sifted through the documents, each page a testament to a barrage of charges for extravagant, unnecessary luxuries. Thousands of dollars spent on clothing, thousands more at exorbitant restaurants, credit card statements that made my head spin. And there is something else, Edward added in a low tone. Jason has been systematically withdrawing funds from your checking account without your knowledge. What? I gasped. Because he is the designated beneficiary in the event of your passing, the bank granted him emergency access to the account a year ago when you were hospitalized with pneumonia. They never rescinded that access. I drew a sharp breath. How much has he taken? Approximately $35,000 over the past 10 months, small amounts each time, likely hoping you would not notice. I rose and moved to the window, attempting to absorb the magnitude of this profound betrayal. My son had not only pilfered my family's heirlooms, but had also been siphoning money directly from my bank account. Edward, I finally managed to articulate, I wish to press charges for theft. Eleanor, are you absolutely certain? Once you initiate this, there is no turning back. Jason could face imprisonment. I turned to face him. My son, as I knew him, no longer exists. The man who sold his grandmother's jewels for a lavish vacation is not the boy I nurtured. That afternoon, while Edward was meticulously preparing the legal documentation, my sister Teresa called. Eleanor, I received the documents you sent. I find it utterly unbelievable what I've been reading. Do you believe me now? I asked, a tremor in my voice. Oh, sister, I am so profoundly sorry. I had no inkling things had deteriorated to this extent. I recounted the theft of the jewels and the pilfered funds from my account. Oh my goodness, she whispered, aghast. Eleanor, you must take decisive action. This cannot continue. I am already taking action, Teresa. Tomorrow I am filing criminal charges against Jason. Against your own son? Teresa, I stated with a heavy heart, my son passed away a long time ago. What remains is a stranger who views me solely as a source of financial sustenance. That evening Jason called. His voice carried a distinct desperation. Mom, we need to talk. I believe we've had sufficient conversation, Jason. Please, Mom, there are things you don't comprehend. Kiara says she can explain everything. Jason, I found the jewels. Or rather, I found out where you sold them. I possess the security footage, the receipts, everything. Mom, I can explain. Can you explain, I countered, how you stole your grandmother's jewels to fund a vacation? How you've been systematically draining my bank account for nearly a year? How did you know about the money? His voice was a mere whisper. Because, contrary to what you and your wife believe, I am not a senile old woman. I am a 65-year-old woman with all my mental faculties intact, and I am acutely aware when I am being robbed. Mum, please, we can return everything. We just need some time. Jason, tomorrow I am filing criminal charges against you for theft. I strongly advise you to secure legal counsel. I ended the call and sat in the profound silence of my kitchen. In less than a week, I had irrevocably lost my son. Yet for the first time in years, I felt a surge of regained dignity. I had no clear vision of what the future held, but one certainty solidified within me. I would never again permit anyone to treat me as if I were invisible or disposable, especially not my own family. Wednesday morning, I was roused from my slumber by an insistent, violent pounding at my door. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was only 6:30 a.m. I donned a robe and proceeded to the door. Through the peephole, I recognized Kiara, but she was a stark contrast to the impeccably groomed woman I knew. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged, and she wore the same attire as the previous day. She appeared utterly desperate. Eleanor, open the door. We must talk. I refused to open it, instead speaking through the door. Kiara, it is 6:30 in the morning. Remove yourself from my property. I am not leaving until you speak with me. This is madness. You cannot destroy your own family in this manner. My family has destroyed itself, I stated firmly. The pounding escalated, becoming more frantic. I promptly contacted the authorities. 15 minutes later, a patrol car arrived. I watched from my window as the officer conversed with Kiara, who gestured dramatically, pointing accusingly towards my residence. Subsequently, the officer knocked on my door. Good morning, Mrs. Sterling. I am Officer Rodriguez. This lady claims to be your daughter-in-law and states she needs to speak with you urgently regarding a family emergency. Officer, there is no emergency. This woman and her husband, my son, have stolen family jewels from me valued at over $50,000. They have also been systematically withdrawing funds from my bank account without my consent. Today, I am filing formal charges against both of them." The officer turned his gaze towards Kiara, whose face had drained of all colour. "Is this accurate, ma'am?" she stammered. "She is lying. She is senile. She does not know what she is saying." I retrieved the folders Edward had prepared and presented them to the officer through the slightly ajar door. "Officer, here is all the pertinent documentation: the security footage from the pawn shop, the sales receipts, the bank records detailing the unauthorized withdrawals." The officer meticulously reviewed the evidence for several minutes, his expression growing progressively more serious. "Ma'am," he addressed Kiara, "I must ask you to vacate this property immediately. Failure to comply will result in your arrest for trespassing." "This is preposterous. She is my mother-in-law. We are family." "Ma'am, family ties do not negate the illegality of theft. You have 5 minutes to depart before I request additional backup." After Kiara departed, the officer inquired if I wished to press additional charges for harassment. I readily agreed. 2 hours later, Edward and I were at the police station, meticulously filing all the formal documentation. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Silver, thoroughly examined all the evidence. "Mrs. Sterling, this is an exceedingly strong case. The video recordings are particularly compelling. What transpires now? We will be issuing arrest warrants for both Jason and Kiara Sterling. They will likely be apprehended before the close of the day." As we exited the station, Edward placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. "Eleanor, are you entirely certain you wish to proceed with this course of action?" "Edward," I replied, "a week ago my answer might have been different, but I no longer recognize the man my son has become. The Jason I knew would never have stooped to stealing his grandmother's jewels to finance a vacation." That afternoon, I received 3 phone calls that irrevocably altered the trajectory of events. The first was from Detective Silver. "Mrs. Sterling, we apprehended Jason Sterling this morning at his place of employment. He cooperated fully and confessed to everything. He has expressed a desire to speak with you. As for Kiara, we have not yet located her. She apparently absconded from the residence this morning, and her whereabouts remain unknown." The second call was from Teresa. "Eleanor, Jason contacted me from jail. He is utterly devastated. He insists he wants to speak with you, that there are crucial details you need to comprehend about Kiara." "What sort of details?" He was reticent to elaborate over the phone, but he conveyed that Kiara had subjected him to threats, indicating she would abandon him and seize everything if he did not comply with her demands. The third call proved to be the most astonishing. It originated from Carmen, Kiara's sister. "Eleanor, I feel compelled to disclose something significant about my sister. Carmen, I am not in the appropriate frame of mind to entertain further fabrications. No, please, Eleanor, listen to me. Kiara called me this morning in a state of hysteria. She confessed everything: the theft of the jewels, the money siphoned from your account, the entire sordid affair." I sank heavily into my chair. "And Eleanor, my sister is a gambling addict. She has been engaging in online betting for years. The debts they have accumulated are not solely for luxurious pursuits. They are predominantly gambling related." A sickening sensation washed over me. Did Jason have any knowledge of this? Not initially. Kiara had misled him regarding the purpose of the funds. However, when he discovered the truth a few months ago, she threatened to leave him and accuse him of physical abuse. Is that accusation true? No. Jason would never resort to violence, but Kiara possesses a remarkable ability to manipulate, and he feared people would believe her. After ending the call, I sat in my living room, attempting to process this cascade of revelations. My son had been both manipulated and blackmailed, yet that did not absolve him of responsibility for his actions. He had made choices, grievous ones, and now he had to confront their consequences. That evening, I made the decision to visit Jason at the jail. The county detention center was a somber and dispiriting environment. Jason appeared utterly defeated when he was escorted to the visitation room. Deep circles shadowed his eyes, he had lost weight, and his clothes seemed to hang loosely on his frame. We sat opposite each other, separated by a cold metal table. For several minutes, an oppressive silence enveloped us. "Mom," he finally uttered, his voice thick with emotion. "I am so deeply sorry. Jason, tell me the truth, the complete truth." And then he broke down. He recounted every detail of Kiara's crippling gambling debts, how her online betting had escalated from modest sums to the staggering loss of thousands of dollars weekly. He spoke of her relentless threats, how she had convinced him that if he faltered, she would not only abandon him but also dismantle his reputation. "But Mom, I never intended to steal from you. Every time I took something, I rationalized it, telling myself I would find a way to replace it before you noticed. Jason, you absconded with your grandmother's jewels, the very jewels destined for your children one day." "I know." Tears streamed down his face. "I know, and I loathe myself for it." "And the money from my bank account?" Kiara presented it as a temporary loan. She assured me that once she achieved a significant win, she would repay us tenfold. I searched his eyes, desperately seeking a glimmer of the boy I had raised. "Jason, at any point during this ordeal, did you consider confiding in me?" "I wanted to 1,000 times, Mom, but Kiara insisted you would judge us, that you would disown us entirely if you learned of her predicament. So instead, you chose to sever ties with me first." Jason lowered his head. "The assisted living facility? That was Kiara's notion. She proposed that if you were placed in a care home, we could liquidate your residence to settle the debts, asserting you would receive superior care and we could commence anew." "And you acquiesced to that?" "No, not initially, but Kiara persisted, maintaining it was in everyone's best interest, and his voice faltered. "I was so weak, Mom, I allowed her to persuade me." A long silence followed. Finally, Jason looked up. "Mom, can you ever find it in your heart to forgive me?" It was the question I had dreaded most. I gazed at my son, this 40-year-old man who had made such devastating choices, and struggled to formulate a response. "Jason, I love you. I will always love you, for you are my son. But the man seated before me is not the man I raised. I do not know if I can forgive the magnitude of your actions. More importantly, I question if you can forgive yourself. Are you going to drop the charges?" "No." Jason nodded slowly. "I understand. I deserve it." "Jason, this is not about what you deserve. It is about accountability. You made decisions and now you must face the repercussions." I stood to depart. "Mom," he called out, his voice laced with urgency. "Could you do something for me?" I paused. "What is it?" "When they locate Kiara, could you ensure she receives the help she desperately needs? I acknowledge the gravity of our transgressions, but she truly has a problem. She requires treatment." I looked at my son one last time. Despite the ruin she had wrought upon his life and mine, he still harbored concern for the woman responsible. "Jason, you are not obligated to rectify Kiara's issues. Your sole responsibility is to mend yourself." I left the jail with a peculiar sense of emptiness. I had obtained the answers I sought, but I did not feel solace. If anything, I felt a deeper melancholy, knowing my son had been both a victim and a perpetrator. Yet another emotion stirred within me, determination. Jason would have to forge his own path toward redemption. I had already provided him with ample support. It was time to embark on living my own life. 6 months following that calamitous evening at the restaurant, I awoke in my own bed, within the sanctuary of my own home, feeling utterly liberated. Kiara was never apprehended. According to Detective Silver, she had likely absconded from the state upon learning of Jason's arrest. A warrant remained active for her apprehension, but frankly, I found a measure of relief in her permanent departure from our lives. Jason received a sentence of 8 months in correctional facility and 3 years of probation. He was also mandated to provide restitution for all that he had stolen. His legal counsel had argued for a more lenient sentence, citing mitigating circumstances, but the judge remained resolute. Theft was theft, regardless of the excuses offered. I had attended the sentencing hearing. Jason had met my gaze from the defendant's table, but I did not reciprocate, not out of malice, but because I had learned that dwelling on the past obstructed forward progress. Over these past 6 months, I had implemented profound changes in my life. Firstly, I engaged a part-time caregiver, not out of necessity for medical assistance, but for the invaluable peace of mind derived from having a reliable presence nearby. Maria, a woman in her 50s with impeccable credentials, arrived daily from 3 to 7 in the afternoon. We prepared meals together, strolled through the neighborhood, and she evolved into more of a confidant than an employee. Secondly, I completely revised my will. Edward ensured its legal fortification. My residence and all my properties would be bequeathed to a charitable foundation dedicated to assisting elderly women who had been victims of familial abuse. Jason would receive a modest sum, sufficient to facilitate a fresh start upon his release from incarceration, but nothing more. Furthermore, and perhaps more crucially, I had begun to genuinely embrace life for the first time in many years. I had enrolled in art classes at the local community hub, discovering an unexpected aptitude for painting scenes of nature. Additionally, I became part of a literary circle where I formed 3 authentic friendships that evolved into my primary social network. One of these new acquaintances, Dolores, had navigated a remarkably similar challenge with her own son years prior. Eleanor, as she'd confided during one of our recurring Sunday suppers, articulated a profound truth. The most difficult aspect of these situations is the gradual realization that our children can sometimes become like strangers. She stressed that this isn't a reflection of our failings, nor is it something we possess the power to rectify. Her words resonated deeply. For an extensive period, I had clung to the conviction that if only I extended enough affection towards Jason or demonstrated sufficient patience with Kiara, things would inevitably improve. However, affection offered in a single direction simply cannot sustain a relationship poisoned by toxicity indefinitely. One crisp October afternoon, as Maria and I were preparing our evening meal, the chime of the doorbell interrupted our kitchen preparations. Peering through the peephole, I saw the face of a young woman I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Sterling," she introduced herself. "I'm Laura Morales, a social worker from the correctional facility. May I have a brief word with you regarding Jason?" I admitted her, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension coloring my demeanor. "Mrs. Sterling," the social worker continued, "Jason has been participating in our rehabilitation program for the past 4 months. He has demonstrated remarkable progress. I'm pleased to hear that he wishes to send you a letter, but he requires your consent to dispatch correspondence. Would you be amenable to receiving it?" I paused for a moment, contemplating her inquiry. "What would the letter primarily address?" I asked. "It would largely focus on apologies and the significant changes he has undertaken. He has also been attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings to gain a deeper understanding of the events that transpired with Kiara. It appears he too struggled with gambling issues, not directly involved, but he developed enabling behaviors that contributed to his wife's addiction. After careful consideration, I gave my assent. The letter arrived precisely 1 week later. It was extensive, spanning 5 pages of meticulously penned handwriting, and I could discern the immense thought Jason had invested in every single word. "Dear Mum," it began, "I understand I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, given my past actions. I know I shattered your trust in the most fundamental way imaginable. During these past months incarcerated, I've had ample opportunity for introspection regarding the choices I made and the person I became. I want you to understand that I am not writing this in the hope of influencing your will or securing your pardon. My intention is to convey that I have finally grasped the gravity of what I have done. I didn't merely steal valuables and currency. I pilfered your sense of security, your faith in your own family, and your inherent right to age with grace within the comfort of your own home. There is absolutely no justification for such actions. I have undergone therapy and learned about the dynamics of codependency and how I allowed Kiara's predicament to become intertwined with my own. More importantly, I've come to realize that none of these insights excuse the decisions I ultimately made. When I am released in 2 months, I will not attempt to contact you unless you explicitly desire it. My plan is to relocate to another state and forge a completely new existence. I have accepted a position with a non-profit organization dedicated to assisting families grappling with addiction. Mum, I want you to know that the resilient, self-reliant woman you are has always been my inspiration. I deeply regret that it took me this long to recognize that. With love and profound respect, Jason." A postscript followed. "P.S. I realize I will likely never recover my grandmother's jewels, but I do possess all the photographs of them that you preserved in the family album. Should you ever wish for copies, I can readily provide them." Upon finishing the letter, I carefully placed it in my desk drawer. I wasn't prepared to respond, at least not immediately. However, the knowledge that Jason was finally accepting genuine accountability for his transgressions brought a measure of relief. 2 weeks later, Teresa journeyed to visit me from Arizona. This was our first in-person reunion since the entire ordeal had begun. "You look absolutely radiant," she exclaimed, embracing me at the airport. "You appear liberated." Her observation was astute. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I wasn't burdened by the constant anxiety surrounding Jason, the delicate dance of appeasing Kiara, or the pretense that everything was well when it was glaringly obvious that it was not. During her stay, we revisited the Bella Vista Grill, the very establishment where the initial crisis had unfolded. "Doesn't this place bring back difficult memories?" Teresa inquired as we settled into our seats. "Quite the opposite," I responded. "It serves as a reminder of the precise moment I resolved to reclaim my life." That evening, the restaurant's manager approached our table. "Excuse me," he began. "Aren't you the lady who experienced that rather unfortunate incident here a few months ago?" I felt a familiar tightening in my chest, bracing for further discomfort. "Yes, that's me," I confirmed. "I simply wanted to express my immense admiration for the way you handled that situation. My staff still discusses it occasionally. Your ability to maintain your composure and dignity while firmly asserting your position was truly remarkable." After he departed, Teresa and I exchanged a knowing glance and erupted into laughter. "Who would have predicted you'd become an inspiration to restaurant personnel?" Teresa mused. "Certainly not me," I replied. On our drive back, Teresa posed a thoughtful question. "Do you harbor any regrets?" I considered her inquiry carefully. "I lament the extended period I allowed myself to be mistreated. I regret enabling Kiara's persistent disrespect, for so many years. However, I have no regrets concerning the choices I made once I finally chose to see things clearly. And regarding Jason, he is an adult who made his own adult decisions. The repercussions of those choices are not my responsibility to bear. Approximately 1 month after Teresa's visit, I was tending to my garden, planting bulbs for the upcoming spring, when Maria emerged from the house. "Eleanor," she announced, "there's a young man at the door who claims to be your grandson." My heart momentarily ceased its rhythm. I had no grandchildren, neither Jason nor Kiara had ever had children. Proceeding to the door, I found myself facing a young man, appearing to be around 20 years of age, with eyes that held a striking familiarity. "Mrs. Sterling," he introduced himself. "I'm David Sterling. I'm Jason's son." The world around me seemed to spin precariously. "What?" I stammered. "Jason is my father. I was unaware of your existence until recently. My mother and he separated when I was an infant, long before he met Kiara. He discovered me on social media a few months ago and shared the entirety of what transpired." I stood there, rendered speechless, gazing at this young man who possessed the very same eyes as a young Jason. "May I come in?" he asked. "There's a great deal I'd like to discuss with you." And so, in a turn of events I could never have anticipated, I discovered I had a grandson, a diligent, earnest young man, a university student who had grown up entirely unaware of our family's complex history. David became a frequent visitor. He was intelligent, showed me immense respect, and offered a fresh, unbiased perspective on the entire situation. He didn't condone his father's actions, but neither did he pass absolute judgment. "Grandma," he addressed me one afternoon as we enjoyed tea in my garden, "I believe Dad is finally starting to understand who he truly aspires to be." "And what is your assessment of all of this?" I asked. "I believe you did what was necessary, and I think that perhaps, with time, our family can discover a path towards healing." I wasn't certain if his assessment was entirely accurate, but for the first time in a considerable while, a flicker of hope ignited within me. A year following that regrettable dinner, I was experiencing the most fulfilling chapter of my life in decades. I had cultivated genuine friendships, embraced new pastimes, fostered a burgeoning connection with a grandson I never knew existed, and attained a profound sense of peace derived from the certainty that I would no longer permit anyone to treat me with disrespect. Jason had been released from incarceration and had relocated to Colorado as he had pledged. He sent me a postcard each month, a simple confirmation that he was faring well, but he made no attempt to re-establish a deeper connection. He respected the boundaries I had set, and that in itself represented a beginning. Kiara remained missing, and frankly, I harbored a quiet hope that this status would persist. One evening, while engrossed in a book in my living room, my gaze fell upon a photograph of Robert resting on the table beside me. "I believe I finally grasped the lesson you were endeavoring to impart all those years ago," I murmured to his smiling likeness, "that I am worthy of being treated with respect and dignity, especially by my own kin." For the very first time since his passing, I felt as though I was truly living, rather than merely existing. "My name is Eleanor. I am 66 years old, and I am finally liberated. Did you find my narrative compelling? And from what geographical location are you tuning in?" Let's continue this conversation in the comments section. If you found this story enjoyable, your support through a super thanks would be greatly appreciated, enabling me to continue sharing similar narratives. Thank you immensely for your kind and generous support. I eagerly anticipate your reflections on this story. On your screen, you will find 2 other life stories that I highly recommend exploring. My channel offers a wealth of further content. Please remember to subscribe. Until our next life story, farewell.